don't have enough space on their to take the 2,000 because the 2,000 would take them above the 15,000, and that cannot be done. So it is important, say, when you are sending money to mobile money, either your family or friends or business or doing something, always check with the person receiving the money, say, how much do they already have in their mobile money account? And based on that, you can send. If they don't have any money at all on their mobile money account, then you can send 15,000. I think the single transaction, I don't know if it's 10,000 or 15,000, but you can send up to 15,000 to the mobile money wallet without a problem. And it's important to keep that in mind because some of us, either we kind of take it for granted, say, like, we can just send. Yes, you can just send, but it's also important, say, you check what space the person has on the mobile money wallet. So my mobile money wallet right now has like 10,000 Ghana in it. I feel very rich. So if I want to send myself money in Ghana, I can't send 6,000 because my MTN already has 10,700 Ghana cedis in it. So the only money I can send now is whatever that would take, it's 15,000. So that's something to bear in mind and something to note when you are sending money to mobile money wallets. But to bank accounts, you can send up to 30,000 Ghana. Does that make sense, Jonathan?
Yes. Thank you very much
for those family friends of mine who are on the show thinking I should send them some more patrol and then they watch it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the education. All right. We will now move on to our topic for today. And as I earlier indicated, we are so blessed to have our dear speakers back again. And in fact, after the show last week, I got a lot of messages from our audience saying that we should bring them back. We should bring them back. And we are so blessed this evening to have them back again. And if you were not with us last week, or if you didn't watch this program last week, our first speaker for today happens to be Patrick Kwabena Stephenson. Patrick is economic consultant, and he has consulted for institutions in the public sector and within the INGO space, including World Bank. He is a master's degree holder and postgraduate professional in development. In fact, the first time I watched Patrick on TV, as a matter of fact, he's also a part-time journalist. He worked with Media General in Ghana. The first time I watched this gentleman on TV, he hosted Tutu Ejari, one investment advisor. And in fact, I asked myself, who is this gentleman? And I'm sure a lot of you who were on the show last week will also ask the same question I asked myself. Who is this gentleman? Yeah, Patrick is with us once again. Patrick, good evening and welcome to the show this evening.
Good evening, Kwame, and good evening to everyone who's joined the call. Yeah, it's great. It's great to be here to have another conversation, about our beloved Ghana with you.
Nice one. On the lighter note, Patrick, I'm told that you are an old Vanda, and I've heard that
strong one at that.
Come again.
Strong one at that. Unrepentant Vanda.
I've heard that Vanda City is going to be a mixed hall very soon. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, people can dream. As to whether those dreams will see light of day is another conversation altogether. I mean, they tried this years ago. It didn't work out, but now we have left all these years and they're still trying it. So I think I've been in the hall, spoken to some of the boys. Currently, OVA is in court as well. We've secured 2 injunctions to stop the university from doing what they want to do. And I think the conversation is a little different. The focus is not on Mfan is sort of bringing women into the hall. I think the point is that they are trying to kick all the continuing students out So they go and find their own accommodation. Now, by this time, the accommodation, I mean, it's very expensive for the kids. If you are in a residential hall, I think say you're paying something around 1,500 cedis for a year. Now, if you go out and look for a hostel, the price can go up to about 4 or 5 times that, to maybe have 6 or 7,000. And we feel it is inhumane, for the university to do that. But as usual, something like this happens. The whole student body is quiet. You can expect that it's only Commonwealth or that's going to sort of try to engage on that. So that's just by the way.
That's just by the way, but I've been reliably informed that the Volta Hall are prepared to host Father Barkus in their corner. That is just by the way.
You can rest assured. That's just by the way.
Right. Somebody's asking me, what is the show about? Today we are talking about property investment in Ghana. Why property investment in Ghana this evening? We are very much aware that remittance contributes about 12% to our GDP in Ghana now. And for that matter, substantial or significant amount of this 12% goes into real estate. And for that matter, it would be prudent for us to discuss about this for people to know the ins and outs when it comes to property investment in Ghana. Yes, we are also much aware that there is a huge property deficit or housing deficit in Ghana, but yet still people are not investing that much, or people are a bit skeptical when it comes to land issue and so many things. But I mean, with your experience, you'll be in the best position to tell us more about property investment when it comes to investing in properties in Ghana. Patrick, yes, last week we spoke about the investment climate in Ghana now. People are not sure whether they should still continue to invest in Ghana or not, and for that matter, in property. What do you have to tell us this evening?
Well, so first of all, thank you for putting the conversation together. Like I like to say from the beginning of such discussions, let me disclose that I don't have all the answers to all the questions that you may have, but I'll share what I can from my perspective to the best of my knowledge and understanding of what the market looks like. But also for us to sort of set this up, as a conversation, right? You may have questions, I may have answers. I'm sure there may be alternative views about what you want to do out there. But having said that, I think perhaps maybe, to set the conversation rolling, I probably may say 3 things. One is that, I mean, we all know that at a very general level, the Ghanaian economy today is not as sound as we would have wanted it to, based on the sort of investments and commitments that we have made, whether it's in the private sector or the public sector. And I say that because the fortunes of the real estate market or the property market, in some ways, is connected, to the overall performance of the economy in certain regards, right? And so, to the extent that the economy is struggling, you may see traces of that in quite a number of value chains, including the property market. So that's a very fair disclosure. But we should also be cognizant of the fact that it is during difficult times, like this, that people with the right kind of information, people with the right kind of insights, and those who are patient over the long term, I think you tend to generate value, from things like this, right? There's a famous authority in finance that says we should never waste any crisis. So it is within the context of a crisis that you're likely going to find opportunities. So I should make that disclosure first. The second thing probably would be the property market itself. And the property market as we have it in Ghana today has got several facets, right? There are different parts of it, there are different components of it, and every component thinks on its own, even though they are inextricably linked and connected to the fortunes of the economy broadly. It is important to understand the different components in there. So, I mean, you may have the part of the market that is just dealing with real estate land, right? There are people who will just buy land around some very interesting and exciting areas, hold on, and then flip these over time as and when value appreciates, compared to what they may likely generate from other assets that the government may have. As we spoke last week, I mean, there are significant challenges with the government assets that you have on the market. So if you find somewhere that it's a bit safer, right, where that the value of the property may go up, people tend to do that. And so that is one side of the market. It's got its own risks. I'm sure during Q&A, maybe I'll probably be able to unpack some of those risks for those who decide that that's a part of the market they want to play in, i.e. buying land, litigation-free land, that is, holding on to it, what sorts of things you need to consider when you do that, and whether or not that side of the market is growing in and of itself. Then you get into the real part of the market where people are actually either building putting up buildings, offices, etc. And in that part of the market, I think there are possibly quite a number of segments. So you may have commercial real estate, for example, right? So people who are either putting up properties that others can use for offices, and we've seen a lot of that coming up in the last maybe 5-10 years. The number of offices that we've had that are springing up, particularly around some of the interesting business districts in the country. Accra, your Accras of this world, your Takoradi's of this world, your Kumasis of this world, but primarily in Accra. Not every part of Accra, but some very strategic areas in Accra, I think are quite interesting. The trend in the last perhaps 2 or 3 years may not be that interesting and exciting for commercial property. And again, if you say commercial, probably unpack commercial a little bit. So there may be those that are setting up things like malls. So your I don't know if you come home frequently. You see places like City Galleria that have come up, maybe your Marina malls of this one. So there's that part of the commercial market. Then there is the part that deals with offices that I was talking about earlier. Now, due to developments like COVID and the changing culture of work, right? The growth in that market has slowed down a little bit, I should say, because again, people are figuring out how they can sort of combine working remotely and working virtually as opposed to working, in well-established offices and things like that. However, there are some very traditional value chains that their expansion and growth is connected to the growth in the commercial real estate market. To be maybe a bank, maybe an insurance company, when they're expanding in size and branches are growing, you may find increases in those sorts of offices. You have new businesses and new ventures that are coming up either in the tech space that are equally occupying these facilities. And you can make some good money there. I'll probably get into some of the numbers later. But like I said, the growth in that market, yes, demand has slowed down in the last 2-3 years. So it probably may not be as exciting as it is. On the outlook, however, there are expectations that perhaps at some point demand may pick up. I'm not sure where that optimism comes from, because from my understanding of the market, at best, probably growth is going to slow down a little bit. So there's that end of the market. Then you've got the part of the market where people are doing this retail, right? So buying, selling, buildings for the purposes of residence, and that end of the market is very interesting because it appears not to follow the regular psychology of the other parts of the market that I may have talked about. In Tiahono, you may not find prices that are as interesting as the prices you may have, for some of the prime areas and prime real estate properties, in Accra and beyond. However, there's a consistent increase in the number of people who are preferring to buy, their own land, not in the city of Accra, but sometimes on the periphery of Accra. When you're driving maybe towards Ebri, for example, places around Ayi Mensa and Co. Just before you start climbing, people have expanded and are getting into those areas, right? So they are building maybe 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, houses, semi-detached, detached, and they're selling them at very interesting prices. As to whether those prices are commensurate with demand, that then guarantees some amount of returns for you. I think that those economic, we can possibly have a conversation about them in a bit more specific terms. Outside of that area, you equally have areas around maybe Pokwase, going to Sawam. I mean, the city of Accra is generally expanding. People are considering these areas for the retail end of the market. To obviously, then they sort of sell them out, give or take maybe $40,000, $45,000 or $50,000. The cheapest I've seen is around $50,000 or $55,000 for a 2-bedroom semi-detached in those areas, right? But again, the demand side of that, the dynamics are quite different. What I should say though is that for that end of the market and the rental end of the market, right? I haven't talked about rental, so perhaps I should speak about rental end. So the rental end of the market will involve, and you've got some very big heavyweights in that space, right? So essentially, you are either building or putting up a property and renting the property out, or you have a company that has built a bunch of flats. You invest in one of the flats, you buy, and then property managers like Brawl and others. If I mention any company, it's not because I do business with them. So perhaps maybe no companies, right? But you get a property manager who manages the asset for you, and they deal with the issues of rental. You generate your returns off the back of that. A challenge is that the heavyweights in that end of the market tend to enjoy some significant, share of the market, and so it's not clear the extent to which individuals tend to break in, other than through these property marketing strategies. So that's one. But that rental end of the market and the retail end of the market I talked about are somewhat connected to, and this is very funny, the tourism sector. So your ability to generate cash flow and rents, almost significant cash flow and rents, almost depends on what noise we may have within the area of tourism. So sometimes maybe towards the last 2 quarters of the year, you may have demand picking up for those properties. So you make some cash, but immediately after that, say Q1 to Q2, say, you may struggle a little bit if you have any of these properties, because then the pressure that you got from either people coming back for holiday or people who are generally coming back because they want to move into the country. I think that tends to affect the economics of that end of the market, right? And so it's important, and it's something that you should adequately think of. Then there are a number of other interesting options around things like mortgage financing and what institutions in there are doing. But I should say that when you look at the market as a whole, currently demand for properties may not be as interesting and exciting as they were if you look at the market as a whole. But like I've explained, if you sort of get into the specific value chains or specific subsectors, you may find a sweet spot that you may get involved in, simply because you want to hold value to a particular point in time. We should bear in mind that real estate in BBI or property is not something you get in and cash out like you may do for a bond market. The yields that I've seen from some of the top performing companies in there, yields or returns may sit between maybe 8.5% to about 15%. That's what you're likely going to get in terms of ROI. However, again, that's industry-wide. So in that, you may be able to find some areas that may be sweet. But I should say that there are still very significant challenges because demand is not as exciting as we saw some years ago. And I recall last week trying to sort of explain what the demand structure would look like, right, for anyone who's looking to get involved, particularly around the retail point and the point where you're doing rentals, right? It's very difficult to get properties in those central areas, your cantonments and all of these other areas, and paying $3,500 or $4,000. People are beginning to prefer the properties that are coming up from the retail part of the market in the periphery. It's Spintex Road somewhere, the road that's open. That's a lot cheaper. So they may get into the retail end of the market, buy a property, and then rent the property out, right? And then make some cash flow for that. But I'm saying in terms of the cash flow, you really need to think long term. It's not going to be a quick turnaround. However, it is a fine preserve of value. Because again, if you are done bonds 3 years ago, somebody bought real property 3 years ago, you're going to struggle now. They're not, right? So again, it's a matter of understanding the risks that you're confronted with and how you manage these risks. On the subject of risks, I think those who decide to go through, the very first part of the market I talk about, buying land, holding land, and sort of flipping it up at some point, there's a major litigation risks in Ghana at the moment. However, there are some very interesting litigation-free properties that you have somewhere around in Sawam, the areas behind that. You can get, some very interesting properties as well in Accra, so long as you put in the strategies to sort of mitigate against that. There's been several programs and initiatives from the quarters of government. Some of the programs I'm very familiar with up close to deal with issues of litigation risks. Unfortunately, we like to still do things with guru boys and the like. So again, it makes clarity around those sorts of regulatory institutions and regulatory infrastructure a bit problematic. That you'll probably be able to engage up close. It makes things a bit difficult for you. However, as I say all the time, if you speak to the right people, if you have the right insights, you'll probably be able to mitigate against all these risks and be able to work around that. And I'm a Kasache. So perhaps these are the 3 things that I wanted to perhaps open the conversation with. And then if there are very specific, questions, I'm more than happy to respond to them. And I'm sure by then Kwame would have also joined us to probably share a thought or two.
Thank you, Patrick. Abusiafo, we are talking about property investment in Ghana. Meaning say yenyina ye oha na mododo na area bi a yenyina ye neje ho. Ye sisi dan, ya to dan, ye pese ye to dan, ya to asase, experience, challenges, any idea ya femu. Uwo any idea na say any experience you are more than welcome to share with us. And I feel so mema kwan na o question be answer what me ebusa ye brother na ononso na dwenchira wo ana simple obi owo call so and so ewo ho experience they can also share with us this evening. Intino enye menu we are guest speakers tonight and we are the audience as well, so you can share your thoughts and your views, your experience with us when it comes to property investment in Ghana. Inti if you have any question to ask our brother, you can raise your hands on the Zoom and I will call you to ask your question. And after the question time, we will open our breakout room where our customer service team will be in there to assist you. If you have any peculiar problem or issue with your TapTapSend app, you can go to breakout room 1 when we open it, and our customer service team will be there to assist you. And right after the question time, we will have TapTapSend focus section where we have a general discussion about TapTapSend. And in Tisa and a program that you read at here. Right. And in Sabri, if you have any question, will be to me amounts as you can raise your hands and I will call you for you to ask your question. But before I will pick the questions, I think that me or one ebi wa hanoma the person me busa Patrick na or any idea na say we be or beat me at the Amaya. Patrick, you spoke about, or you talked about litigation-free areas. I mean, litigation is something that those living in the diaspora don't want to hear. They don't want to go through because we don't even have the time. Can you advise us some of these areas that you think when we want to buy land around those areas, we wouldn't have that much problem? Or what would be your advice when it comes to land banking, or when we want to acquire land in Ghana?
Somehow I had a feeling that was going to be one of the top questions that Ken asked. Yeah, so it's fine. I think it's an interesting and very poignant question. Perhaps the approach that I'll take to that maybe, once again, what not to do as opposed to what to do. Because again, if you look at the land tenure system of the country today, okay, we are not like maybe some of the most advanced countries where the markets have significant clarity, and so property ownership or land possibly may vest in the state. Individuals don't have property, and as a result of that, it's clearer when you have to buy. I know part of land, some parts of the land, regardless of where, could potentially be held by a particular stool or skin here being a handful, may have some property that is in their hand. You have some property that is in the hands of a state, but those ones get released. Then you have properties that belong to specific families, depending on the area. It's not the same as so I think that is important for people to actively think about. Then as well, I think 2 years ago, we have a new land law, and that land law, I think, has made some very dramatic changes to some of the provisions we had. In Tianano, it is, I think, that you can't get freehold land any longer. You can only get leasehold, and the leasehold
Patrick ni Lionel a freeze kakra. I will try and see if we will get Patrick back again on the call. So if you have any question, you can raise your hands on the Zoom call, and when we get Patrick back, he'll be more.
Sorry, I think my call tripped.
Yes, it did. You were talking
apologies
about
for that.
Yeah, you were talking about leasehold and line.
Yes, so I was talking about some of the changes, some of the changes that have happened. So as you know, you are likely going to get a leasehold of about 50 years. So it's important to think about that. 50, I think between 50 and 99, but 99 is very rare. People are doing a lot more 50 years now. And so again, it's very important to think about that as an important consideration, so that once somebody is selling land to you, you're asking very fundamental questions. Maybe a 50-year-old lease with 10 years and not 15 years, right? That should equally inform your discussions, and your conversations with the person. In terms of, where you may likely not get trouble, I think it has to be the very, very peripheral areas of Accra. And again, inside Accra, risky at this point, right? Unless, of course, you are prepared significantly to invest in manpower on the ground to protect or guard against land for you, or have significant political connections, or you've got family here that can consistently monitor. I think places behind and after Pokwase going to Sawam, yes, you may find some interesting properties. If you want to do something on a very large scale, go towards the Brio side. So if you want to do something, I think behind those areas, you may find towards the western part, I mean, when I say BBS, I don't mean you can't find a property. I mean that if you go to some of those areas, the possibility of coming across or going to invest in a property that is under litigation is significantly high. But in all cases, I think when you get closer, what you should do is to probably get closer to actors who are operating in the space so they can better advise and direct you to a particular property that is not litigation, that's not litigation prone or litigation free property, as opposed to say what can I deal with somebody who probably doesn't have the expertise to understand that end of the market, right? So perhaps what you should not do is to, within the insufficiency of knowledge and possibly technical expertise, just, I think I've seen a lot of that where people engage, they buy property, then the argument is that the position of the law, it's all the cases that I've seen settled. The evidence based on the current Land Act 2020 is a bit, it's not that straightforward. You probably could be locked into litigation for a very, very long time. And so I guess the advice would be engage much closer, and then we have the opportunity of figuring out together with you how that happens and how you can sort of navigate some of those risks.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. We've been also joined by our dear brother, Prince Akpesey. Prince happens to be an investment director of Zebu Investment. He's Zebu Investment Partners. Prince was with us last week, and today we are fortunate again to have him on this show. And the topic is property investment in Ghana. Prince, you are welcome to the show once again this evening.
Thank you very much, Nana.
Awesome. Boss, we are talking about property investment in Ghana. And in brief, what can you tell us when it comes to property investment in Ghana? Like I said, a lot of people are a bit skeptical when it comes to investment within this current climate. But when it comes to property investment, what will be your advice? What will be your suggestions? What do you have to say to someone who is listening to us, who is a bit not sure what to do?
Thank you very much. I think that one of the I don't want to say safest, but one of the asset classes that appears to have some stability in times like this is the real estate asset class. And so you find people who are making a conscious decision that, you know what, if there's turbulence elsewhere, I might as well put my money into real estate because it has been shown to appreciate in value over time, right? And so that is a safer way of trying to create value. The challenge with our system is that the system governing property is not very proper. Issues around title, issues around like your rights to property is a bit challenging. And so if it's a space that you want to play in, you have to be very careful. I had opportunity of listening to some of the things that Patrick had talked about, and I wholeheartedly agree with everything he said, particularly from the side of the law. You have to be, beside the law, you have to be extra careful, because just this afternoon, I was having a conversation with somebody who was talking about his cousin wanting to buy a property, and the people selling the property to him, the property is actually in the name of the government because the government has acquired that place for something. And the people are telling the guy that, oh, there be a buying J property no ontia home compensation into until he dug and realized that no, government has actually properly acquired it, gazetted it and everything. And so the guys were charging him 100,000 cedis per plot. And if he gave them the money, he was going to lose money. And so then he pulled back. So it's a very complex place. There are people who are paid 3 times for the same property. There are people who have had to fight or have had to do all kinds of things just to keep hold of the property that they've spent money to acquire. But in the midst of all of these, there are some good opportunities that people can take advantage of. And so I think that the name of the game is due diligence, due diligence, due diligence. Thank you.
The name of the game is due diligence, due diligence, due diligence. For if or question B, say if you have any question, our 2 guests are ready to assist us with the best of their knowledge, what they can to advise us when it comes to property investment in Ghana. So if you have any question and you are on Zoom, you can raise your hands and I will call you to ask your question. Kwame and Patrick are ready for you. Yemfa Kweju. Kweju, unmute yourself now for a question, bro.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes. I want to know concerning lands, what are the like for a land to gain value? How long does it take? I guess it depends on the area, but with their expertise in these things, taking, for instance, the areas that Patrick spoke about, probably maybe in some area going up. What are the tendencies of the value that comes on it, let's say in 5 years' time or 10 years' time? What are the value gains in percentage-wise? Thank you.
Okay. Pat, if you can take this one for me, then I'll take another.
Let me come here before
Okay.
Patrick comes in, because he mentioned Nsawam, and I grew up in Nsawam, so I can give him some context. So we all agree that real estate is a long-term proposition, right? And so you experience your price appreciation incrementally over time, right? When I finished Legon, I bought the property that it's within 800 meters of the bypass of the Nsawam bypass, right? I bought it at that time. It was 5.5 million. If we convert it into today's CDs, it's 55 CDs. Today, do a property there for less than 40,000, if not more. Hello?
Hi. Yeah, your line dropped a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So what I was saying was that you won't get a property there for less than 40,000. Where I currently live, I bought this in 2012. 2012, yes. When I moved here in 2017, when I go out to town and it's 10 p.m., I won't come back home, because the whole place was so dark. Now, today, I go out and I come back at 3 a.m., 2 a.m. because like the whole place has suddenly come up. So you want to like keep that in mind, that it's a long-term thing, and you will see the value come up over time. When I got this place, for how much I got it for, today people are quoting properties around me in dollars. So, and this has happened, let's say, in the last 6-7 years. So there's opportunity to make decent returns over time. It just will not be like that. It would be more like consistently.
Patrick, do you have anything to add? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Well, I mean, the man from Nsawam has given us the Nsawam has given us the Nsawam insights, right? I mean, I think that, you know, perhaps that's what I was going to say, that it's very difficult to sort of tell you by how much, you know, returns you're going to make with us. I mean, we need a bit more information to be able to tell you that. But outside of that, I mean, if you should use, outside of the metrics that Kwame has put, for example, look at people that are actually doing things on a commercial scale. Because against any commercial, the tendency that they are probably going to be able to optimize and diversify some of the risks that we're talking about away is likely the case. Normal crown.
Patrick Enso Lino Adrope. Whilst we are waiting for Patrick to come back, I'm sure Kwame is on the call. Kwame, I have this question, but before that, let me pick Cecilia. Cecilia, unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Mami.
Me journey wo me didn't know, but my question I'm a person maybe based on the last a year Patrick making about the property in terms of where you have the property, the problems and what comes. But I wanted to ask Patrick, say, maybe it's like me was a Sibi or Kaswa. I'm just asking if there is any help or if, yeah. It was a Sibi or Kaswa at Chebe 10 years now. 10 years now. And recently, you know, in a Edima Obisa Ondo for so and Nipano Edofu no, but Edu baby no. I say Yentanko, Ebeko 3 years, 2 years. Me a go the Abana where Diana is like you just want him to be there so that the land will be secure, okay? But when before we realized, I think he's become a part of the like or try to tell other people, say probably the assassin here no only hunting no ebi a obet me kakra down or so enti ye hu ye no na akwa say obi a be see 1 bedroom ye was so then we realize say ye be lusu land no and ye start to say ye bon fence. But akwa say recently no obi e by assassin ye media. By so you will document everything, registered land, everything, you will all the papers. But my question is, is there any law say like make me anya document be a meet media abo on say yes you bet media abo war ne hu say na be ya obi be hu say it belong to somebody so they shouldn't get closer. So I wanted to ask, is there any document that will come from government or do you have to go to land to be able to get a document that will show that this land belongs to me so nobody should get closer to it? Is it anything like that?
Right. Kwame, I know you can help us, but from what I'm gathering, I think maybe next week we have to try and get a lawyer on this show again that will talk more about litigation issues when it comes to land in Ghana. But Kwame, if you have anything to say on that.
Patrick, we did. Patrick.
Okay. Do we have Patrick back on call? Patrick, are you there?
Yes, I'm back on the call.
Awesome.
Apologies for my network that's tripping all along.
I'm sorry. But I understand when it comes to Ghana internet.
Right. So the simple answer I can provide is that she should possibly speak to a lawyer. Okay. That's probably the best response I can give. Because again, these are just the facts, that you are providing. I don't think it's enough for me to make any sort of sound judgment around that. So perhaps would be to speak to a lawyer, look so that we can take a much closer look at what the issues really are. However, like I did say, there have been significant modifications, to the principles that we had in customary law around up until 2020. Now land issues now we're dealing with them, based on the position of customary law. So, for example, assassin up until 2020 now, assassin somebody encroached on the land, for about 12 years or more. With your knowledge, Sedipano was on the property, but he did nothing about it. After 12 years or so, there were positions in customary law that made, the interest in the land sort of revert to the person. And then you have to go through court processes to sort of validate who, has rights, how you can assert these rights, etc., etc. So I think, sir, perhaps in terms of advice, the best I can say now, based on what I have heard, is that I think there are things that need to be looked at up close. I don't think, sir, merely putting a sign, displaying a sign on the property to say, nobody should encroach it, is enough for people not to encroach. As a matter of fact, when you put it up, it shows people that you're actually not around. That's why they will encroach, right? So from a legal standpoint, I probably would not want to exhaust our discussions on the law. The best would be to say, find a lawyer locally and speak to the lawyer and let them understand the real facts of the case, and then they can better advise what to do. However, beyond the law, there are significant things you can do to protect your property. Okay. It is assassin wo na cash kakra wo ho a ne mesre ne se fence wall na betwa we twa fence wall na the gate asia na the padlock na akọ and no sir, somebody would have to pull down the wall before they can encroach on the property. And then once that happens, I think it introduces different. And other people can do it, and you still have to go through the litigation process to go and assert your usufructory interest in the property, right? So I think that, off the top of my head, based on the facts that I've been provided, I think the two things: one, if it's possible to sort of ring-fence the property and protect it fiscally, that's one, or speak to a lawyer up close and then let them guide you, through the process of what you can do to either retrieve properties that you have lost, or protect the property. But just signpost, but signpost is not enough.
Okay, Mr. Patrick, where the medasi ba akwese me dear no me defense. Nipa me hu ye catch me say, oh, obi abesi dan or suntino. Me hu ya na we just left quickly, we fence the whole place, and we put the gate and we have a key, right?
Okay.
But because the land, somebody has approached a part of it, and we approach the person and we show the person our document that the land belongs to us, and he's agreed that the part that he took, he will pay. Okay, so he agreed. So we kind of agree in between us, and along the line, he just decided that, look, I'm not going to pay. So then we took her. We wanted to take her to court. The processing of the court, and we should talk about in between, and then he will pay again. We did that, so he agreed to pay. So when he paid part of the money that we have agreed on. So the tricky thing is that because he knew the other guy that was building on the other part, he went and told the guy that, look, this land, I think they have done something. So we quickly fenced the whole place, including that I think 2-bedroom on the land. Okay, so they say we served that person. We went to court and we processed everything. We said, look, there's somebody built on my land. So the court to tell whoever to build the land, it should come and remove his building from my land. So it was like yesterday, they went there and doing work on the land. And this guy, they came from anywhere, I don't know. And they took my sister to police station. So my sister went to the police station and they said, okay, because we put the whole issue into court, you should wait. But my question is that nobody took us to court. Like, should we still wait or one that be a seminal corner?
Okay, so I think some it's in the can I say the suggestion about speaking to a lawyer I still think holds, it's still relevant, right? So that we can look at documents up close and advise properly.
Okay.
But beyond that, nobody has the right to go and pick anybody and take them to police station. I mean, land sale matter is not a criminal offense, unless of course what they have done is something that what you have done is something that can be controlled as a criminal offense, in which case the police service will have to be dragged in, right? So any crime, a contractual obligation. We know where we've sat down, agreed on what to do. Yeah. Once we go into a contract and the item of the contract is not illegal, they say you could do some money, nobody, police are doing. So again, they shouldn't have picked them up. So if they pick them up, I think this is just something to tell you that they probably have to let it go, right? But ultimately, the way you have described this is that there have been several agreements for the gentleman or whoever is involved to make due on the part of the property, and he's not honoring those obligations. So again, it becomes a matter of going through court, submitting the results of your arbitration and the discussions and conclusions. If you have them in evidence, you submit them to court of competent jurisdiction for them to examine. But I'm saying all of this has got to be done on the proper advice of a lawyer, right? Okay. So it will be very good to speak to a lawyer so that they can direct you properly. The final thing I'll say is that the way land is and the way the 2020 law has defined land today, and it's always been the case. So when you become a problem now, while you are in court, the person puts up a property on the land. If you get judgment in your favor, okay, the judgment covers the land. The way I define the land, as I said, BBA be as part of the land. So if somebody puts a property on your land and you eventually get a judgment, the person shouldn't expect that the court is going to give any compensation for whatever property has been put on the land. But again, it would depend on the substance of the case, the issues that are being considered. So my final advice, once again, please do get in touch with a lawyer and do that as quickly as possible before somebody else goes to take custody of the property.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay.
Cecilia, thank you for your question as well.
You're welcome.
On the call this evening, we've also been joined by Mr. Douglas Opon. Mr. Douglas Opon is the CEO of Angel Finance Group, Angel Properties. He has been involved in property industry in the UK, Europe for some time now, and currently he's heavily involved in property investment in Ghana. He has been on this show before. Mr. Douglas Opon, you are welcome to the show this evening. The reason why I want to talk to this man on this topic is about a question that I have in mind to ask my two guests, but I think he will be of an assistant to us when it comes to this particular question that I'm going to ask. Mr. Opon, are you there? Right, it looks like Mr. Opon. If you can unmute yourself, we'll be very grateful to hear your voice. All right, let's carry on with my question. Prince and Patrick, PP. Areas like Ebri, Akosomo, Pram have become a place of choice for weekend getaway, mini vacation, and etc. What is the future holds for a potential investment in these areas, and what will be your recommended what would be your recommendation for someone who wants to invest in property in these areas? Would you recommend apartment, guest house, or Airbnb? Oshe Dansenya, Ghana, Airbnb is becoming an area people are looking or investing into. And then again, hello.
Hello.
Hey, na Abrante Bini. Mbacho, mute yourself for us. Why?
Kwame, it's Douglas.
Oh, Miss Opon.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I can see you on your bed. What?
I'm listening.
Okay. Fantastic. Mefa Patrick ni Prince. But before that, Mr. Opon, when it comes to property investment, who you'll be why you be or UK, why you be or Europe. Now you are in Ghana. Can Airbnb now you've heavily invested in Douglas Court in Accra, and you are doing other places as well. And then for investing in property, we can get away. People are looking at a Bri, Pram, and areas like that. What would be your advice if somebody want to invest in these areas? Should it be apartment, Airbnb, or guest house?
Well, thanks very much for having me on. I wanted to learn from everybody.
We want to see your face, if possible.
I'm trying to put my face on it, really.
Camera not turning other way around.
Okay.
So
it's the other way around. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have to do it properly. I'm sorry. But just ignore the camera. Listen to the voice.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, I think the question as to what people want is very relevant. In Ghana, Obi started business or turn toast. They will say, "Ato BMW." No, be a person turn toast. Airbnb has become the thing that most people want to do in Ghana at the moment. And see, Obi IAB and so everybody else wants to do the same thing. But like I think one of your guys, it's not Patrick, the other guy from Nsawam.
Prince.
What's his Prince?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was talking about Nsawam having developed from what it was when he was a child. And in real estate, they call something location. It's a cliche. And the same to do with Airbnb. But the guests in Airbnb these days have become more sophisticated. A lot of them don't even want the city anymore. People want quieter places that they can have a good time to themselves with their family or whatever, or even on business, trips. So when you buy in places like Pram, in places like Cape Coast, in places like Ebri, which is closer to where I am in Douglas Court, and those sort of places, you shouldn't expect to have a very huge traffic. Now, there's two price mechanisms that you can adapt. One is when people go to those places, those who go to such quiet, remote places are people with deep pockets. They want good life. They want a good lifestyle, a certain lifestyle, and they're happy and prepared to pay for it. So you shouldn't expect your town, youngish, millennial guy who is just looking for a place in East Legon, Adenta, or wherever, who just wants to hop on and off an Uber to be in a place like that. You tend to get middle-aged people, you tend to get foreigners, you tend to get Europeans who want to have an African taste, but they want a quieter life. So for places like that, if you want to run an Airbnb or short-term rental, then you have to be able to understand that you will not have a very big lead of traffic. So your pricing has got to be right to make it worth your while. Other than that, it's probably not going to be something that you want to do in those places. So pricing has to be the right mechanism that you will use to be able to generate the sort of income that will make the place work.
Your pricing has to be right. I remember when you started your project, it wasn't that easy. And how were you able to turn things around that, I mean, come Christmas, Easter, your place is fully booked? And what would be your advice for somebody who is considering to invest in Airbnb in Ghana?
I think a lot of the things I did, in fact, and you know, I've done this for a long time here in the UK and other places. So I do a lot of mystery shopping. And whenever I'm in Ghana, even up to now, and whenever I'm in Ghana, I sleep in Airbnb. Even I have my own places and all those places. Initially, I stay in Airbnb because I want to understand how people are providing services. So I wrote an article in LinkedIn, my LinkedIn page, where in 1 year I toured so many countries. I was in Madrid, Barcelona, I was in Glasgow, I was in Edinburgh, I was in Airbnb was in Kumasi, and I wrote Airbnb. Even in Germany, in you know, Madrid and all those places, I didn't enjoy the Airbnb. The Kumasi Airbnb was excellent. The service was great. The facilities were absolutely fantastic. So that is the sort of mindset I used to set up my place in Douglas Court and other places I'm setting up. When we started, people would come in, and I said that if you come to Douglas Court and you don't say wow, then we haven't done our jobs. My boys will say, hey, boss, or buy, or say, wow, I'm Paukayu. Or say, wow. So if you don't say wow, it means we haven't done our job. So to say wow, what is the wow factor? The wow factor is the facilities. The wow factor is the finishing. Ghana, we are very poor with finishing. And the wow factor is not importing things from Europe, everything from Europe. No. With Douglas Court, everything was exquisitely done by local hands. Exquisitely done by local hands. The sofas, the tables, everything, apart from television and maybe some of the glass dining sets, everything was by local people because I wanted to be proud of our people. So I myself was there supervising everything. So when you provide good facilities, the next thing is service. Our customer services in Ghana is shite. People build the buildings, they have great places, but the customer service is bad. They don't smile, they don't provide good things, and all of those things. So if you can do that, then people begin to acknowledge the whole thing. So come Christmas this year, we were spilling over looking for properties to send our guests to. How? Because people were just falling over to do it. The reason is because the service has got to be good. And that is what it is. If you're running an Airbnb, don't concentrate too much about the curtains and the sofas. Concentrate about on the services that you offer. Somebody comes in and says, oh, Wi-Fi is not working. You've got to get the Wi-Fi to work. Where there is doomsday, where is there doomsday? We didn't have generator all throughout. Thankfully, throughout the Christmas, there was no doomsday. But doomsday was one of the issues. And so this year, we've spent over £18,000 shipping generator to Ghana, just so that when there is doomsday, we can be able to provide the service to the people. So it's about the facilities, it's about the service. The reviews we got from Christmas was customer service, 10 out of 10. Facilities, 10 out of 10. Staff, 10 out of 10. Cleanliness, 8 out of 10. Location, 5. Because we are in Adenta all the way at Pantan Junction. And you know that Medina traffic alone is huge. But people are able to feel comfortable. Once they are there, they are there. So they forget about the traffic. When they say, okay, the traffic is not bad, it's not your fault. That is out of our control. When you're running an Airbnb short-term rental, focus on the things that are within your control, not the things that are outside your control. You can't do anything about the traffic in Medina. I can't, but I can do something about my place so that when you are there, you feel comfortable. That is how we've been able to get maximum occupancy in our place at the moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pon. I'll come back to you once again, but let me take a question from Krista D. Krista D, then I'll come back to Patrick and Prince on the same question that I asked earlier on. Crystal,
Yes,
unmute
hi.
yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Prince. Thank you very much. Are you all right?
I'm all right, and you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you.
That's all.
So it's just a question, really, for the gentleman that spoke. Was it Doug?
Yeah, Douglas.
Douglas.
Yeah, we can see you
Yes.
now.
Please, Mr. Douglas. The question is for you. So you spoke of the Airbnb, and I want to know: do you invest in service apartments, or that is when it comes to Ghana? Do you invest in serviced apartments at all?
Well, service apartments, yes, I do. Of course, I do invest in service apartments. I do. I have been doing that for a long time here in the UK and also in Ghana. I have invested. In fact, some of my latest investments are in apartments. But there is there are certain places in Ghana at the moment where the developers, when they're developing, are happy for you to buy the property. But after you've bought it, they say, oh, you can't use it for Airbnb, all because people have come in and they are using it for, bits and pieces and all that. You understand? So
Right.
Key entry about Airbnb is very important. So if you buy in a service, in an apartment, and there is a concierge, and you're not there, and your guests go in, how do the guests get the key, access to the key? That is a very important thing. And a lot of the people within the apartments are also concerned about security. They don't want people coming and going all the time because they're afraid that, there may be some miscreants coming into the property and all that stuff. So they begin to get concerned as well.
Right.
So when you are buying apartments for Airbnb, you must ask the developers, is it okay to use it for Airbnb? And if that is yes, then you need to be able to find out how are you going to deliver the service, particularly in relation to the keys, how you're going to give people the keys when they've left, where are they going to put the keys, and that sort of stuff. And the security of your guests should be very primary in your mind, because somebody can, in Ghana, places like that, anywhere, people can go and cut a copy of the key. And so all of those things are things that you've got to be able to put into your head. But you need to speak to the owners or the developers of the apartments to find out if it's possible for you to use it for Airbnb.
Okay, no, that's very good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me go back to Prince and Patrick. The same question that I asked in areas like Bri Pram Pram, where these days people do have their weekends away, they do get away or a mini vacation there. If somebody is looking to invest in these areas, what will be your recommendation? Should it be apartment, guest house, or Airbnb? Prince? Then I'll come to Patrick. I think Patrick will go first. Prince is not there.
Yeah.
No, Prince is there. He's just muted. Kwame, if you can unmute yourself.
What to do with it, or what to do, whether to get an Airbnb or an apartment. To a very large extent, my response will feed into what Douglas said. What I took from Douglas's presentation was more about the experience.
Prince, you're on mute, please.
Okay, so what I was saying before was that what I took from Douglas's presentation was more about what product is it that you're selling, right? So the decision to either get an apartment or to do Airbnb have to be approached more from a business perspective. What is the product? What are you selling? Who do you think you can sell this to? I think that, approaching it from that angle will help you differentiate yourself in a marketplace that's a bit crowded at the moment. And and I could hear Douglas making references to that point all through his presentation. You need to do a more thorough assessment of one, the location, what it is you want to sell. Are you just selling short stays? Are you selling an experience? Are you selling something else, right? Those are the things that help you to differentiate yourself in a market where everybody is they have a property and they are putting it on Airbnb and are trying to charge ridiculous amount of money for it. That's what I'm saying.
Patrick?
I think that Douglas and Kwame, sort of bring the point home, right? Perhaps what I would add is that maybe another thing you should equally think about is what domestic tourism looks like, right? Because again, if you're doing Airbnb, you're not doing Airbnb for me, Kwame. I mean, I live in Accra. Say Airbnb, I'm not doing Airbnb for me, right? So that you really need to think through. And so I think that a lot of what we've seen in the explosion and that short end of the real estate market has really been driven by international tourism, but also domestic tourism. So I hear you. There's a reason why it's not happening. You're mentioning places like Ebri, and you're mentioning places like in Sawa, right? You're mentioning places like Pram, like Ada, right? Because these areas tend to connect you to places where people want to really have a good time, get to explore the country and see the country better, etc. Right? So that looks a bit interesting. Airbnb business in your very traditional areas in Accra, I think it's a little tricky these days. I'm not too sure. If you get to places like Osu, people are putting up all manner of things and calling them Airbnbs and essentially giving the business a bad name, which then means that you have to, as somebody who's investing in the space, and I think Kwame and Doug have talked about that, go over and above and beyond. So if I'm getting a property, for example, for somebody who's coming to visit, I'm thinking, initially I'll think around the areas around your airports and all of these other cool places. But now it's not so interesting in these areas any longer. You're looking for the other amenities that may accompany it, right? So I'm saying, think about the traffic flow of domestic tourism, its cycle. And if it's not in that area, then the point that Douglas and Kwame make is very important. What can you do? What are the other added services that you can add to that makes your investment worthwhile? And if you look at it that way, I mean, a few of us friends can decide that, Yanko Pram for a weekend. Some boys will put some grill in somebody's car. You get there, you grill. So if you set up a property there, you're doing short rentals for like a weekend. Well, you set up a cool grill. People can come have a good time and then they go back. What kind of property would that look like? Do you need a high rise? Perhaps not. Do you need something by the beach in Pram? Perhaps yes. These are things that you have to consider if you're really thinking about a business in that area for the medium to long term.
Kwame, can I just add one thing that pick up on what Patrick said?
Yes.
I think Patrick has made a very important and valid point. When I entered into the Ghana Airbnb market, my whole gambit was about people like myself, diasporans going back home, Ghanaians, other Africans, and Europeans, Americans, Canadians, what have you not. That was my initial set, because my Airbnb properties in the UK is, mostly occupied by these kind of people, including domestic UK people. So that was my initial gambit. So when I got into the Ghana market, I never really thought about the domestic market. But it soon dawned on us that we're getting emptier and emptier. We'll have one or two people booking through any of the, overseas travel agencies like Airbnb, Booking.com, TripAdvisor, Expedia, blah, 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 VRBO, all of those. But they were few and far between. In America, they only have 2 weeks holidays. So they come to Africa, very, very latently. People from the UK, Europe, they come to Africa a lot, of Ghanaian descent. That's what I mean. So we were getting emptier. So I hired a manager, and the manager said, boss, there are people asking. So we did a lot of billboards. You can see our billboards all the way from airport, from Presec all the way through to Pantang Junction, where we are. We have billboards all over the place. People started calling. But these were people who are from Ghana, domestic people. So there are people coming from Tamale, coming from Takoradi, coming from other cities, and they're coming to Accra, and the hotels are too expensive. They want to be able to cook. They want to be able to enjoy themselves. That is the market that short-term rental, in fact, I would even call it Airbnb, the market that short-term rental covers. We are between a hotel and a normal rental. That is what our short-term rental market is. Of course, we've all said Airbnb because it's a primary, platform that everybody uses. But short-term rental is the difference between a hotel and a normal, short hold tenancy, normal tenancy. So we started scaling the pricing for local people. If I'm charging $100 per night for my 3-bed, the local person times it times the CD and they say, hey, wait, they must have the board. So we started to do 25% discount on all our online pricing for local people. And here's the catch. People are in Canada and UK, they are coming to Ghana. They call you, Kwame or Patrick, and say, oh, Shisha baby Mae. So you come to Douglas Court and you come to book in cedis because he's seen it in dollars, $100. But when you come, you get it cheaper. So we decided to do that. If you come through us through the local market, then we'll reduce the price for you and we'll take cedis. But if you book online, you have to pay in dollars, So that is how we started populating the apartments. So people will walk in, oh, I saw your billboard, blah, 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 and they come in. So we have a different price for those local guests, and we have a different price for those who book out there. So as Patrick said, you need to also decipher your local guests because these are the people, there are people who have money in Ghana and people like chilling, like myself. I love chilling. I'm chilling papa, okay? I love to chill. So people come and they want to chill. They want to be able to cook. They want to be able to go to Medina market, shop, cook, So the people we had people from Ethiopia, people from Ivory Coast, people from Canada throughout the Christmas period. And these were all families and couples, and they want to cook. So you have to find out what your avatar is. In digital marketing, we call something avatar. Avatar is your customer group, your guest group. So our local avatar, we price it down. And for our foreign avatar, we give them a different price.
Next
That's
time,
how
I'm about to book you or Ghana. Why? Say they buy a mini local price.
Yeah, but sure when him.
Okay. If you're on this call and you have a question to ask about property investment in Ghana, Patrick, Prince, and Mr. Douglas Upon are ready to assist us with their experience. I mean, my last question, you wrap it up this show. Douglas, Patrick, in your submission or when you are giving an answer, you made mention of East Legon airports and these prime areas, cantonments. Are these areas overpriced? And are there any real returns when you invest in this area? It will go for all.
It will go for all of us.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. You see, price is usually a function of the market you're serving or the people you intend. What a prospective market really is. So for a person who's getting into the country, who's working for, any of these international non-governmental organizations or even the bank or doing some consulting work for
like tap
blue chip, like tap send, right? And they're here, do a quick project and go back. They probably may not mind, putting up, $3,500 a month, $4,000 a month in cantonments for property. They stay there, chill out, short rental, and they're gone. They may not mind. But beyond that, and with the proliferation and access to information today, people can quickly reference and cross-check places where they can get value for equivalent service, equivalent properties. That, to my mind, has brought significant questions around the pricing model that we have in the property market for properties in that part of Accra. Your Labonis, your cantonments, your all the way through to your East airports, fundamental questions both on the retail and then on the rental side, right? Which may appear in certain regards not to justify, you see the property, you go look at the services, and you look at what's been provided. It may not justify $4,000. I mean, if you walk the streets of Manhattan and you're paying maybe $5,000 a month for a property, yeah, very high end. But you can see. So people are beginning to ask questions. So as to whether it's realistic or not, I think that if you speak from the entrepreneur side or the person who's making investment, again, it depends on the market. So he may not bother. I mean, he's got the property, probably servicing, clients that are coming in from the World Bank, doing projects for the bank. He's got a property, he's locked in, he's managed to lock that deal in. Maybe every year he gets occupancy for what? Maybe half of the year. He's fine. So it may that business model may appear to justify whatever rentals he's taking. But if somebody can equally put up a similar property around the Spintex route, and I think Kwame was talking about this, last week, and there's an access route that gets the Spintex route quickly, and he can get, same service, it makes no sense for him to go pay $4,500 when he can actually get it for maybe $1,500 or even $2,000 in that area. East Legon now, heavily overpriced, right? People who are doing retail now, I mean, for some of those properties, like half of the year, I drive by all the time. You see these properties are closed for it. It's there, like half of the year. Occupancy significantly impacted. So again, depending on what model you're deploying, you can't say for everybody. Somebody may put up a property, charge a particular price, but has found a sweet spot and hacked it. Good for him. But it's important for you to understand where you're likely going to get traffic, understand the evolution of the market itself, what people are beginning to prefer. Nobody is getting excited about big hotels any longer, right? Unless, of course, you're doing big conferences, etc. Nobody's excited about hotels to live in Accra any longer. The market has moved to short end. It's moved to Airbnb. Some of the Airbnb models don't seem to make sense. People are now thinking domestic tourism. Okay, if I have an Airbnb, I get a bus in addition to it. We can move people to Afajatu, etc., etc. So the services, the market has been broken down into values, into different value chains and complementary services that I think don't seem to justify what you may have, in terms of property values in those parts of Accra. However, if you're getting into the peripheral areas, maybe there's something interesting to look at. I don't know. Perhaps Kwame or Douglas may have a different reading of it, but this is my reading of it. And the more I look at it, you see demand dramatically, declining. At least in that part of the market. We've seen some of the leaders in the market and look at demand and the amount of properties that have been supplied to the market. It doesn't seem to suggest to me, because again, some of them are optimizing the prices. One of them that I probably did some work for, they've optimized prices from $4,500 to $2,700 in the last 2 years, right? So it tells you that something clearly was not sort of gelling up, right? But again, maybe let me leave Kwame and Douglas. Perhaps they have more interesting insights.
Thank you, Kwame.
By and large, I agree with everything that Patrick has said. Again, you have to think about airport, East Legon. What segment of the market do those properties target? What is the, like, when you draw the distribution of people in the country, what percentage can afford those locations? Of course, depending on what your strategy is, you may want to want to play in that market because maybe what you're offering is a premium product that people should be able to pay for, and so you are not looking at anybody to just come in. But then that segment of the market also is very sensitive to different issues, and so that to a certain extent can also play into how sustainable that model is. But by and large, I think that you have to understand what products you have, what customer segment you are looking at, and then if you think that based on the product you have, the customer segment in East Legon will, or are those who would be able to afford, well, of course, but then you have to do your work properly.
You have to do your work properly. Mr. Opon, do you have something to add? Then we'll go for a quick ad break. When we come, we will wrap up the show for this evening.
No, I think what Patrick and Kwame have said just encapsulates some of the things that I've been thinking or what I've said. So no, I think it's okay.
Okay. We will go for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we will take one or two questions and we will wrap up this section, and we move on to tap send focus section. And we also open our breakout room to assist customers who are having issue with their tap send account. So, producer, if you are ready.
Yes.
Tap send. Hello, people. Now, tap send is finally in New York. You thought we are not coming there. We are in your place. So what you have to do is to make sure you send money to Ghana. If you're in New York, families and friends in Ghana are waiting for you. All you have to do is to put in your information, sign up on the App Store or Google Play Store, and then you tap and send. New York, we are live and in charge. No excuse. So make sure now you use tap send to send all the money you want to send to the families in Ghana. You know what I mean? Tap send. It's secure, it's fast, and it's convenience. Open day. Did I mention my name? My name is Calabos. The only boss. Wait, what that?
Download tap send now on Google Play and App Store. Tap send. It's secure, convenient, easy, and fast.
Reminding you that this is the sound of Africa. OT Radio is live and alive. This is the time we open the house on this. This is the newest version, of course, the greatest time of our moments now. OT Radio has come to stay. Tune in on www.otradiouk.com, and of course we have live activities more coming on politics, sports, social entertainment, and everything that you request. My name is Sanko Fatitina, so I'm going to be part and parcel of it, and of course, OT Radio has come to say this is the sound of Africa.
Welcome back to the show once again. Time with tap send with your servant Nana Kwame Osei, and my guest for this evening is Patrick Stephenson and Prince Akpesey and Mr. Douglas Opon. My last question will be, okay, I have Tilly on Zoom. Want to ask a question? Tilly, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, I typed my question, but I think Mr. Douglas, is it Opon?
Yes, Douglas Opon.
He didn't say that. I was asking which area in Accra does he have his rental properties?
All right, is Opon.
Wow. Currently, we originally got into the market in Ghana from Pantang Junction, Adenta, and now we've expanded to Ashie Oyarifado Dowa Road. And of course, we also moved to the high end as well with the signature apartments in Shiashi, where we've got a few properties there, and we're going to be staging it for the same purpose. And when I was speaking about, getting involved with the developers and getting them to know what you have in your mind. When we're buying the properties in the signature, for example, they said, oh, you just buy, you can use it for this. But as soon as they got the money, they're now telling you, oh, you can't use it for that. So you've got to sign something in the agreement that says you can't use it for that. Damn you, when are you getting my money, £500,000, 1 year ago, you didn't say that to me. Now you're telling me I can't. That is not a business model. The business model is to use it for short-term rental. And so the high-end bit, that is what we're going to use. So we've got in Oyarifa, and this is what I'll tell people. And if you go to YouTube and you look at Douglas Opong, I teach people how to do Airbnb. And I've interviewed some of the best people in the world, from Singapore to America to wherever. If you have a property in Ghana and you don't live in it often, if it's a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom, find some money and rent it out. The property in Oyarifa that we're using at the moment is a 6-bedroom house. We've converted into apartments, but we also have single self-contained rooms, which is like a hotel. So here you have everything that a hotel would provide, and you have a service, a shared, kitchen. So this is a low budget. So you cater for the low budget. Douglas Court is like a medium-sized budget, and of course, the East Legon or Shiashi signature apartments are, of course, very luxury apartment. So, as all three of us have been talking about, you segment your market. You know who you expect to come to Oyarifa to want to have a one-room. The person is coming from Tamale, so they don't want a hotel, but they want a place that they can really be comfortable. So we've provided rooms for people, private rooms, for them to enjoy themselves. They have everything they can have in a hotel, but they can also cook. You cannot cook in a hotel. So again, the difference between a short-term rental and a hotel comes in there. So the person can book one private room, stay there for 1 month, 300 Ghana cedis a night, and they will be comfortable for 1 month. They can fake it. If they want to spend a bit more, they can go to Douglas Court, take a full apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, 3-bedroom, 1-bedroom apartment, with everything staged as if you are in New York or London or wherever. But because of the location, it's priced differently. And then when you go to a place like Signature, Douglas Luxury Apartments, then you know that you are coming to buy gold. So I look at your face and I charge you. So you segment the market. Yeah. So if you've got a small property, whether it's a bungalow or whatever, try and use that as a means of generating income. Don't go and get loans and buy those properties and leave them there for a watchman. Use the property. Let the property work for you. It doesn't matter the location. You can always get something out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah. So those are where my properties are at the moment.
Okay, and do you have like a limit if someone is getting it for a week or two? Is that allowed, or you've got
the challenge we are having now in Douglas Court, for example, is somebody will come in for 2 weeks, they like it, they want to renew it. Now, do you renew it at the nightly rate or not? So we keep renewing at the night. If you've got the money, I want the money. But somebody came and stayed there for 8 weeks. So I decided to give them 25% off the nightly rate. And they were very happy with that. So if somebody wants to stay in your place, give them a discount, make them comfortable, and take their money. As soon as I realized that the next week he couldn't afford to pay in advance, I said, my brother, we've got a booking next week. So somebody looking for the place.
All right. We want
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tilly. We want to wrap up the show, and I will take my last question. As a matter of fact, I have 2 questions, but I will see how I'll divide it between my guests. Then we will wrap up the show. My last question. I think I will let Patrick take this, and I'll give one to Douglas and one to Prince. Patrick, in the next 10 years, I think somebody asked about land banking. So I want to find out, in the next 10 years, which areas will be the most sought after place in Accra and the nearby cities around Accra, or in Ghana as a whole? Let me say in Ghana as a whole, in the next 10 years.
Man, that's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, I wish, because if I cast my mind 10 years back, I'm wondering if the developments we have in the market today, somebody would have been able to accurately predict them, and tell us the complexities around Airbnb markets, etc., etc. So don't take this as an accurate prediction, right? Just maybe what could generally happen. And 10 years, I think, is a relatively long time. Perhaps the city of Accra, the way I see it and the way it's expanding, maybe what we are likely going to see is further expansion. So your areas around Oya Efa, Ayi Mensa are likely going to be a bit more interesting and a bit more developed and be a bit more expanded. The areas that go into Pokwasi as well. There are interesting things that are happening there, and so people are going to be moving into those areas. What is interesting now that I think could potentially influence this dynamic as well is that there's a part of the middle class that typically your mortgage properties that are coming from finance houses are supporting them to buy houses, etc. There's that part of the market that is not looking to buy properties. There's that part of the market that is looking to actually buy land and build their own properties. A lot of young people now, that's who are getting into industry now as a thinking. And so to the extent that, land is practically finished in Accra, if you're talking about land that's affordable, people are going to be moving into those areas. And so I may cautiously say these areas are likely going to be expanding. So if you want to buy property now, perhaps these are the places to maybe, like I did say, possibly explore. Right now, you may buy a property for $55,000 in places like Pokwasi, right? In 10 years, prices could have gone through the roof. So perhaps that's likely what is going to happen over the next 10 years. The peripheral areas of Accra could potentially expand and become a bit more interesting in terms of the property dynamics. But as these expansions happen, you should equally understand that it has implications for the kinds of business that you may be able to do in the property market in Accra itself, right? Some shifts may also likely happen. Are there likely going to be new developments in the city of Accra? Perhaps a bit more commercial space, a bit more commercial areas. You may see a bit more malls, which could have implications of prices. But again, these are fluid things that you have to sort of monitor, because all of this is equally going to be guided by government policy, right? So it's important to understand the broad policies for the management of the economy, but also for the management of construction and property development. I think that's where I'll probably leave it.
All right. Kwame, somebody's asking, Ken Kusi, how do one justify land prices in Ghana? Some prime locations are asking for $200,000 plus for a plot of land. How do people make up these prices? How can we justify? And another question was asking, why do we normally price property prices in dollars, especially? Why? Kwame? I don't know if Kwame is there. Ms. Opon?
Yeah.
And then Ghana BBI, you said dollars, especially Maminfa Douglas quote. You quote in dollars. Why not in cedis?
We don't quote in dollars. We quote in dollars for those who are coming from outside of Ghana. In Ghana, we quote in cedis.
But generally, property prices are quoted in foreign currency.
Well, yes, I think it's something that the government has worked on, and you see, because of the volatility of the cedi relative to the dollar, so it's the wrong thing that we're doing. We should be quoting in cedis, and the government should really, really be enforcing that. I sit here from outside Ghana and I speak about it because I want the economy of Ghana to grow. And if we want the economy to grow, then we have to stop using dollars as the basis for pricing. I think the government was very strong with hotels about that. But now, you know, Ghana, they start one thing today and they stop it tomorrow. But we should be pricing in cities. So
some property developers also argue that most of their material technology are imported into the country, and if they quote in cities, I mean, it will be very difficult for them to be able to meet their way.
I think that is a rubbish argument. It's a rubbish argument because in the UK doesn't produce anything. They import almost everything. They quote everything in pounds. In the US imports a lot of things from China. They quote everything in dollars. If our currency is cedis, we should be able to be proud to, price everything in cedis, irrespective. I think it's just the macro management of the economy that has gone so haywire that everybody is doing what they need to do. If we have enforcement of laws around currency and pricing of hotels, of things, I think our economy will be more stable because our cedi value would be more relevant to the things that we do. We're just colonial mentality. Everything is in foreign countries thing, just like everything else. So I think if we can get that right, our economy will be better and everybody will price in cities. So if you're coming from US and we've priced property in cities, 360 Ghana cedis is equal to what is it? Whatever dollars. So you come and you pay the cedi equivalent of it. That's what we do. In Douglas Court, we take cities all the time.
All right. My main family last question now for main Jimo last words now in for this section and Brana be a breakout room for people to get assistance with their tap send issues, and we will also have a focus section. Based upon in the UK, this is not new to us when it comes to gated communities or apartment that has concierge security, cleaners within the communal areas. So at the end of the month, you have to pay service charge. In Ghana, we've introduced that in some apartments, in prime locations, gated communities, they have to pay service charge. But how can a potential homeowner or home buyer negotiate this service charge? Because sometimes it looks like some property developers put this service charge over there, which is a bit high for some residents. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think there's freehold and there's leasehold, and I think Ghana's everything is leasehold. But a lot of the developers are using the service charge as a means to making money. Just for example, I've got a service charge bill for these apartments in the Signature. A 2-bed apartment in the Signature, the service charge is $300 per month. $300 per month. A 1-bed apartment is, I think, $200 or $250 per month. So you can see that if you have this apartment and you do not increase, and Patrick was talking about ridiculous amounts of pricing in East Legon and all those prime areas. If you have an apartment there, you're having to pay $300 a month for just service charge. You have to price your property in a way that will take care of the service charge and take care of the utilities, as well as if you borrowed money to finance it, to pay the mortgage. And if you borrowed money in Ghana, a mortgage from EcoBank, Stanbic, or Fidelity, your rate is about 16% on the dollar. So how do you pay $300 service charge per month, pay for the utility bills, and pay for the mortgage, and then be able to make profit? So, yeah. So my advice to people is, if you're buying in for investment, make sure that the service charge is not too expensive, because it does actually affect the profitability or the income that you make from the property that you invest in.
All right. Right. On this note, Mr. Opon, can I take your last words and also tell us where Douglas Court is in Ghana, and how can one make bookings if they are planning to stay at Douglas Court? Then I'll go to Patrick and Prince as well to take their last words.
Okay, my last words is, if you're looking to invest in Ghana, the hottest place right now is anywhere close to Kumasi Airport, because of the way they've just changed the airport. It's going to be an international airport. And so if you're looking to invest, don't concentrate only at Accra. Look at the airport area of Kumasi. That is one place that you can, if you buy land, if you buy property, or you buy to build apartments, that is where you need to look at. Douglas Court is situated in Pantang Junction. You can get us at Douglas Court. Go to Google or YouTube, you can find us there. Our website is there. And so what I'll say to people is, if you're looking to invest in real estate, look very carefully. Don't focus only on Accra. Look at where people can go, like Takoradi, there's Oil City, there is a lot of traffic there. And Kumasi Airport, please, 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 around Kumasi Airport. In 10 years, you'll be laughing.
Thank you very much. Patrick, can we take your last words, then also Kwame?
My last words. I am not Douglas Court. I think the question was what we should do with Douglas. That's just by the way. I think it's been an interesting conversation. Like I always say, having these conversations with people in the diaspora, I think that the diaspora actually cares more about Ghana than we actually give it credit for. I wonder the number of Ghanaian platforms today that are going around where people can, openly talk about some of these opportunities and risks and how they can sort of navigate that. And so, once again, thank you for setting this conversation up. But I should say, real estate, property market, it's a long game. So if you're getting in, don't think of it like you're going to invest in some government treasury bills or bonds and something happens, you're just going to find a way to check out. That's probably not how to look at it. So think long term. There are risks, but the risks can be navigated by proper insight. So close engagement with, maybe principals of TapTap, they can possibly put you in touch with people that matter, that can help you better explore these things. Get lawyers to help you go through, some of these issues that could have, litigation implications. Don't buy property alone. You don't buy shares or, you buy tomato somewhere. It's very complicated and you need significant insights. Again, 2 years ago, we had a new Land Act. The Land Act, or the land law, if you like, has changed quite a number of things in terms of land ownership, tenure systems, etc. Right? I did say freehold no longer exists on our books if you're a foreigner. And I know that some of you are Ghanaians by holding a foreign passport. That has implications on the kinds of properties you can buy, i.e., whether you're getting a leasehold in excess of 50 years. A Ghanaian can get leasehold more than 50. You can't. Leasehold, restricted to 50. There are all these dynamics that are moving around from a legal perspective, which has implications on investment decisions. So I would say that given these movements and changing dynamics, it's important to get closer to people who understand them and don't do them as you would do maybe any other ordinary business. If you want people who can do property management for you, I'm sure if you talk to Douglas, for example, he's got significant insights that he can share. Service apartments, let's talk about them as well. So get closer to experts that can help you better explore these things. And who knows, you're always going to come back home. We can come back home and make Ghana a better place for all of us. Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick. Do we have Kwame there? Kwame, can we take your last words as well, please? And before Kwame, Patrick, if you can help us to put your contact details, if somebody want to contact you after this show for further engagement, we'll be very grateful if you can provide your contact details in the chat room. And the same to Douglas as well. And we will take Kwame, your last words. Kwame.
Yes. Thank you very much for the conversation. It's always very insightful, always very interesting to be here and to have these conversations. Real estate is definitely a means to create and generate wealth. It's an interesting asset class. The entry point for different people, depending on their circumstances, may differ. What I would say is that if you're looking to enter it, do your homework well. Like Patrick and Douglas have said, get advice, and as much as possible, do your due diligence. Thank you.
As much as possible, do your due diligence. Gentlemen, it's been lovely having you this evening on this show once again, and we will be more than happy to have you back again one more time. I don't know when, but we will definitely arrange that. But before you go, I would like to hear from our group director, Kwaku Mauto.
Oh, just to say a big thank you to Patrick and to Kwame for making time again for this evening. It's been a lovely chat and good to hear from you. So when we've discussed property in the past, we've had it from the perspective of property developers, which is very different because they come on and say, buy. I've got properties here, there, go and buy. But this has been a very good intellectual general discussion about the space overall and what people should be thinking about when they invest. So thanks for that, gentlemen. And Douglas, I spotted you on the thing thinking that's the man who invented Airbnb in Accra. And that's true. If you don't know Douglas, those of you who are asking Douglas questions, before everybody knew what Airbnb was, that we were trying to do Airbnb small. Douglas was doing Airbnb long time. So him as Mr. Airbnb. So Douglas, thanks very much for speaking and for coming on. We appreciate it, and we say a big thank you.
All right.
Yeah, that was a and for those of you, our customers who are interested in these conversations, I've always said I'm still waiting for somebody to tell us how we can carry on these conversations after this show, because we have a good chat and we have a good vibe, and it then ends and everybody goes home and people kind of think, okay, how do we continue this chat? We haven't worked out a forum. So if you have an idea of how we could do it, let's do it. I don't want another WhatsApp group. It won't be me, but I don't want another WhatsApp group. Definitely not. So let's find a way to do that. But let's carry on the conversation. Let's help each other. Let's advise each other on what to do. Don't go and invest your money somewhere and lose it. Because in this cold countries that we're living in, it's not easy. So think very carefully before you put your money anywhere. And hopefully I'll be here answering your questions. So Bibenia, I'll see you. Those of you who are dialing off now, I will see you next week. I'll be in Ghana from Monday next week for a week. So if you're looking for me, I'll be eating kelewele, soup somewhere, or wacha, soup somewhere. And I'll see you all very soon. If you're dialing off now. If not, then David and I will answer your questions in the next session.
Awesome. So a big thank you to everyone who joined us this evening for this wonderful conversation. And definitely we will come back once again, same place, same time on OT Media TV. Meeting any Kwame or say to Sabre Yebeko Tap Send focus section where we will have general discussion about Tap Send. But if you have a specific issue with your Tap Send app, I will open breaker room 1. Go there. Our customer service team will be there to assist you with your issue with your app. And intimacy wa bra me no kasa ye